VYBZ KARTEL's international presence, seem to have ignited global interest in dancehall. Do you think this is a turning point for the genre?
I don't think it has ignited global interest in dancehall at all. BEENIE Man made that critical mistake trying to sing on a Janet Jackson record, first of all. So many people have made those mistakes back in the past. The people that stuck to the thing, like Sean and Shaggy them, are the ones that work. So what's the success? That you have 10 million people following you? That puts money in your pocket? I don't know how that makes business sense. Live performance is where the majority of the music money is made, first of all. And the next place to make money off of is publishing, which is records being played on the radio, the same format that says dead and extinct. All this rubbish about Sean and Beyonce had something. All that is foolishness. So there's always this thing on their side of not wanting to put Sean in the same frame with her in the music video.
You and Sean Paul, you created such magic, Dirty Rock, Temperature, Grammys, so many historic ventures. What actually led to that separation? Credited with launching Sean Paul to international stardom, this legendary producer created era-defining dancehall hits from BEENIE Man's Who Am I to bangers with Sean Paul, Mr. Vegas, Elephant Man, T.O.K., and more. Jeremy Harding is a veteran record producer, artist, manager, music business educator, and guitarist. And today we're absolutely grateful that he could take time out of his busy schedule to take us on his journey. Jeremy Harding, good afternoon and welcome.
Hi, Kshema. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Wow, look, thank you. I mean, a lot of us, we grew up on your music and everything. So today I'm really, really grateful that you could join us. And I know your story is so rich, cannot be told in 1 hour, but we're going to try and make it work. Let's begin with your foundation, though. What was it like growing up in Kingston, Jamaica? How would you describe that?
I grew up in Hope Pastures, actually. And I went to Prairie Prep School, which I think now is called Liberty Academy. And I also, in the 80s, attended Campion College. While I was at Campion, I was enrolled as a student at the Jamaica School of Music, which you guys now know as Edna Manley College of the Performing Arts. Back then, it was a separate school, School of Music, School of Arts, School of Dance, School of Drama. Same campus. And it wasn't a tertiary institution like it is now. It was a place where little kids could go from your 10 years old, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and you'd have Saturday classes where you'd learn ensemble and choir and conga drums and stuff like that. And in the week, you'd have your instrumental class. So if you pick piano or guitar or flute or whatever you're playing. So you go like twice a week, basically, learn your instrument in the week with your tutor. And then on the Saturday class, now all the kids will be there from 9 o'clock until 2 or wherever. Learning all the basics of music and harmony and performance, and at a small age. So I was doing that for the 5 years where I was in high school. I was also attending School of Music, and that's also where I took guitar lessons as well. So I played 5 years classical guitar, and I did 5 years of music theory, because by the end of it, you ended up with a diploma from the Royal Schools of Music in music theory. You took exams every year, music theory exams. So that was pretty much it. When I finished high school, instead of doing sixth form in Jamaica, I got into a boarding school. My parents sent me to a boarding school in Ottawa, Canada for 2 years, which was a very pivotal musical experience.
Before we get into the details of Canada, I mean, it seemed like, while in Jamaica, you would have had like a rounded upbringing per se. But what did you admire most about your parents, your mom and your dad?
Well, my mom was horticulturist. She used to exhibit at the National Arena. She used to fly to London and in the UK and exhibit with her flower exhibits and stuff, win prizes. And my dad was at the time, what amount of roles my dad had, I try to remember what he was doing at that time. He was an attorney at law, and he also worked, he's a JLP minister in Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He was president of the Senate. Attorney General, probably I'm mixing the timelines right now, but he was deeply invested in government work and Labour Party work. So we grew up in a very kind of political charged household. He ran for a couple of seats. He did not win. But me and my brother were always like cheering, putting on the shirt, vote Ozzy. You know what I mean? When we were little kids. So that was sort of the background. I don't think musically, my parents never really. My dad used to sing when he was in college himself, like Frank Sinatra style singing, that type of on stage kind of thing, just for fun. But he's the one that has any sort of musical ability, I would say, that I would have gotten it from. You know what I'm saying? And he also used to expose me to a lot of classical music when I was young as well. So he used to drive me to school in the morning, and he would have CDs of Bach and Beethoven and Brahms and Mozart and all kind of people. So I'd kind of get this dosage of classical music throughout the whole high school, drop to school in the morning and listen to stuff in the car, and he'd expose me to a lot of that musically. So yeah, it was a pretty, the Hope Pastors was a atypical kind of Hope Pastors upbringing. I don't know, whatever you don't want to determine it as. And then when I got to high school, we had moved, and then, things sort of kind of stepped up at Campion, and I was kind of more, I guess, more classified as, uptown upbringing, if you want to put it that way. So, yeah.
Okay. So let's look at now 15-year-old Jeremy Harding. You said that you went to a boarding school in Canada. How would you describe this transition? And did you ever have to suppress your culture to fit in?
No. Definitely never had to suppress the culture. As a matter of fact, the culture was what made me stand out and be unique. The kids are fascinated that, you were from Jamaica. It was an exciting time. The school is pretty small, about 1,500 students. It's called Ashbury College in Ottawa, Canada. Ottawa, which is the coldest capital city in the world, by the way. So I got a full experience of what winter really felt like coming from Jamaica. But there was a handful of students of color in the school, and only a handful from Barbados. So there was myself, a handful from the Caribbean. Myself, there were three Jamaicans, myself and two other girls. Two guys from Barbados, a guy from Tanzania, a guy from Nigeria, and a kid from Trinidad. I think it was a Trinidad ambassador's son at the time. So it was a very small group, a little Caribbean group of us, like Caribbean / African mixed together, that we used to kind of hang out and integrate. So it was a very, we learned to, went skiing together. We're a very close-knit little kind of family. But the school looked at us, they were excited. The kids were excited because we were different. We were unique. We were, we were exotic. Of course, you kind of get like the stereotypes that kind of float. I remember when I went there, they put me on the swim team. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, Harding, we're putting you on the swim team. I'm like, swim team? They're like, yeah, you're from the islands. You know how to swim, right? You guys are from the islands. You're swimming all the time. And I was like, no, I can swim, but I'm not good enough to be on the swim team. What are you talking about? Right. They have these little stereotypical things that they always assume you're from the islands. You know what I mean? So it was interesting. It was a lot of fun. It definitely was.
What were you studying?
Well, this was just like sixth form, basically, that time in Ottawa, Canada. By the time I went to Montreal, I went to McGill University in Montreal, and I was studying chemical engineering, I think. But that didn't last too long because the lure of the city and the nightclubs and all that thing kind of pulled me away from that. And eventually I left before finishing that degree and enrolled in a school called Trebas Institute in Montreal, which was basically, if you guys know Full Sail in Orlando, like you ever heard of that school where you got to learn like music engineering and production and stuff. So Trebas was basically that type of school, engineering, production, music management. So I ended up veering off into that. And at the same time,
how did your parents react to that, though? How did your parents react to that? Because here it is,
they were
from engineering to music.
Absolutely terrified and horrified. 100%. But I think the caveat was at least I was in school. I didn't just drop out and say, I'm going to do music. At least I was going to a school to learn about music. So I think that kind of saved it a little bit. But of course, it would naturally have been so terrified. My dad went to McGill as well. His son is going to McGill. He's all excited. And then I'm saying, Dad, I don't want to be here anymore. It's quite a bombshell.
Wow. Did that put any pressure on you per se? Your parents feeling disappointed. So now you're pursuing music, enrolling in school. Did you feel like you had to make it work in order to, somewhat appease them, especially at that age?
Well, the thing about it is that from I was in high school, even at Campion, and I was playing guitar and I was in a little small band, and we played like Campion Barbecue. Back in the day, we used to have Campion Barbecues, and we played on stage live on those things. And in my head, I was saying to myself, I really want to be a musician. I want to be a guitarist. I want to be in a band. And at the time when I was leaving Campion, I'd researched and found schools Musicians Institute in Berkeley. It's in Berkeley, or there's Musicians Institute and there's Berkeley, both over in California, which are like music colleges, you know what I'm saying? And I really, really wanted to go. Of course, back then there was no internet, so you had to have guitar magazines, and you see the thing in the back of the magazine, the ads for the school. You had to physically write them a letter, and they would post you like the brochure. You know what I mean? And I showed my parents, I was like, listen, instead of going to university or college, this is what I want to go to. I want to go to a music college. And they're like, nope, you go to a regular college, do your first degree, and then afterwards you can go. I'm like, but by that time it's going to be too late. I'm going to be like, whatever, 23 years old, or I need to go now. So there's this thing inside me that I always wanted to pursue music from when I was young. And my mom used to tell me the only way to get me to do things as a little baby, music had to be involved. Like I had to have a musical toothbrush, and I had to have the musical thing in the crib, and after everything had to play music or trigger music around me, you know, and to get me kind of motivated or interested. So I think by the time I even got up to McGill and left boarding school, in my head I was still saying I need to pursue music some way, somehow, either as a guitarist or later when I went to Trebas and I learned music production. I enjoyed that, and I said this could be a path. And also, while I was in college, first year McGill, people are like, you're from Jamaica, you need to meet this guy from New York. He's really into reggae music. So I met this guy in the dorm, very good friend of mine, David Wexler, white Jewish guy from New York. You know, dude, totally, man, Lee Scratch Perry, bro. That's my thing. He's like one of those guys, you know, with the bong in the room. But he had a big collection of dub music and reggae stuff. And he wanted to DJ. He said to us, hey, man, we should totally DJ these frat parties on campus. So there was some equipment in the dorm, like a one turntable, a mixer. He had a tape deck. And then I was like, at that time, I was into the Jamaican dancehall of the time, which would have been like Tiger and Supercat and, I don't know, probably General Trees and those type of things, early Shabba, early Shakademus and Plaza, those kind of records. So we would start playing the frat parties, DJing the parties. We don't really know nothing about DJing, you know, but we just want to play the music we like. So we'd go to the frat parties and we'd have to play the regular frat party music, which is like, you know, the Doors and Beatles and Rolling Stones and the Trogs and all that type of stuff. Louie, like that kind of, you know what I mean? Rock and roll type of stuff. And then we'd mix in like, I'm not sure anymore, who be knocking at my door. You know what I mean? We're dropping a Supercat, we're dropping a Shaka Demus, we're dropping a Murder She Wrote, like, you know, a Tiger When, and the frat kids would go off. I mean, they're all drunk anyway out of their minds, but we had fun playing it. And then that led to him saying, we should do a radio show. So we ended up doing a radio show on a college campus radio, which is called CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal, Canada. So the radio show now, so I remember the interest in music stems from like, I wanted to play guitar, then I wanted to do music production, and now I'm DJing. So then that led into doing the radio show. By this time now, when I had left McGill, I started attending Trebas, and we're like into year 1, year 2, year 3. He had to get serious with his degree. So he stopped doing the show. I continued doing the radio show. And I did that show for 5 years in Montreal. So while I'm doing the radio show now, so remember I'm a struggling guitar player in my mind. I'm learning about music production and I'm running a radio show for 5 years. So 2-hour show once a week, much like what you guys do. You have to program the show beforehand. You have to do this, do guests, run ads, all that type of stuff. The difference being that it was college radio. So we didn't have as many restrictions on what we could do or not do per se, you know what I mean? But the important thing I keep mentioning is, I mean, that's like college radio, make it sound like it was a small thing. In Canada, overall, they have Canadian content laws with broadcasting. I think, I'm not sure what it is right now. It used to be like about 60% Canadian content that you'd have to broadcast on a show. So if you had a music show and you want to play hip-hop music, for example, you had 60% of it had to be Canadian hip-hop. So you can imagine how challenging that would be to do a radio show, to play the full gamut. Okay, college radio didn't have to abide by those rules. We could do what we want. So essentially, that station in Montreal pretty much was like the Hot 97 of freaking Montreal, even though it was a college station, because that's where you could play all the hip-hop, all the dancehall, all the house music, interview. You didn't have to worry about the Canadian content stuff at all. So we were like a massive hub. There's big hip-hop shows on the channel. We had the reggae. There's another reggae show, reggae show, Butcher T and Stretch, big them up. And then we had a dancehall. Our show was a dancehall / hip hop show. So he would go back to New York and he'd buy all the new hip hop records and come back. I'd go down to Jamaica and I'd go down to Aquarius and buy all the reggae 45s, the dancehall 45s, fresh stuff, and bring them back up. So our show was like hopping in Montreal kind of. Imagine a guy come from Jamaica with the latest 45 them from Jammies and Ray and every label possible, and people are hearing it for the first time in that city. You know what I'm saying? So we rocked that show for 5 years, as I said. Then out of that becomes what? Now gigs start to happen because people listen to the radio. So now promoters are calling you like, yo, you guys are wicked. So now I'm a professional DJ while attending Trebas. So I'm making a living now playing nightclubs. So I'm playing nightclubs, black nightclubs, white nightclubs, house music clubs, everything. The street parties, all kind of stuff. I'm on the bill. So I'm playing those clubs. My name was DJ Genius at the time. And from the song Genius of Love, I really love that record, and I chose the name. His name was David, and he called himself the Prophet. So it was DJ Genius and the Prophet. I say all of this just to say that it was very pivotal. If I never met that kid and we never had a radio show, we wouldn't be here talking. I wouldn't have taken the interest further to really go into music and reggae and dancehall. I mean, he really kind of pushed me in that direction. So we did that show. And while I was doing the show now, remember, I'm at the school learning music production. So I ended up getting some pieces of gear, a sampler, turntable, a little one keyboard, stuff like that. Actually, my parents gave me an emergency credit card. So to me, the emergency was I need to buy music gear. So I went to New York, maxed out the card. Of course, they were totally pissed. And came back with my equipment and set up in my little studio in my apartment in Montreal. Like all of the stories you hear about people recording the vocals in the bathroom with the mic and the little 4-track cassette thing is the exact thing which we did. But when that happened, and I'm doing production and I'm on the radio, artists, of course, now are coming around you because they want to give you demos and so I ended up partnering with a club promoter, and he knew a lot of young upcoming artists, and we formed a partnership. And we started to produce and manage about 5 different acts in Montreal, or hip-hop acts, really. I think 1 R&B singer, 1 R&B group, and I think 3 rappers. And so I've been producing them in my bedroom apartment, making beats with my little sampler, chopping up stuff, learning how to do production, like how hip-hop guys did production, and putting stuff together. And then we'd go and play the demos on the radio. Because I had a radio show, and we'd play hip-hop, and we'd play dancehall, remember. Now that happens, we have the hottest dancehall and hip-hop radio show. We have up-and-coming acts in Montreal City. So when big hip-hop acts came to town, our guys were the opening acts for the big acts. So now I'm on stage DJing with my young acts as an opening act for the big hip-hop acts. So we open for Ice Cube, we open for House of Pain, we open for Tone Loc, I think Rob Bass, Public Enemy, I can't quite remember. There are so many acts. So now here's Jeremy, the DJ on the stage, right, with my act out there rapping. We're openers. I have the radio show. I'm a radio show host. I'm a radio show disc jockey. I'm also a club disc jockey. And then by now I'd finished the 2 years of Trebas and learned some music production. And I was there making beats in my apartment. And this was a path that I was on at the time. So this would have been like 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, somewhere around there, 23. Wow.
So here it is though, Jeremy, like things seem like, it was booming in Canada because, you're doing it, like you mentioned on stage, your young acts opening for the likes of Ice Cube and so on. What actually led you back to Jamaica? Because everything did seem like it good.
It seemed good, but Montreal at the time, of course, is a French province. So to really kind of make it in Canada, the argument was that you should move to Toronto, which I eventually did. And I moved to Toronto, and Toronto just never worked out the way that I anticipated it would work out. It wasn't as a bigger city. I think the people there and the scene there, they're a lot more, they weren't as kind of welcoming to people coming outside of Toronto. They had kind of been all together for years, all of the guys, all of the DJs, the radio show hosts, their acts. So even though I came there and I had roommates who are kind of like entrenched in the whole little scene in Toronto, it just couldn't take root. And I actually kind of backpedaled. When I was in Montreal my first few years, in the early part, before I got into the DJing and all that, I used to work as a bouncer at bars and pubs, check people ID and whatever, fights, throat people, the drunk people, that type of thing. And I'd left that life, gone on to be like, headlining DJ and playing clubs and all this kind of stuff. Man, I wasn't really making any money, by the way, because back then it would have been like 100 Canadian dollars a night to DJ. But a record cost $10. There's no MP3s. So imagine you're trying to DJ for $100 a night, but you have to go to the record store and buy records at $10 per record. So total madness, broke all the time, and doing that whole eating the ramen noodles and with the ketchup and that kind of life that you hear about. But it was fun. It was great. You had people around you. People came by the apartment all the while. You're famous. You're a DJ in the city. You know what I'm saying? So you get to every nightclub for free. Everybody knew your name. You just walk through the door. You're hot shit. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of cool. But yeah, by the time I kind of went through all of that, I got back to Toronto. I ended up going back to being a doorman. That's the only job I could get. So I was down on Queen Street West, for anybody who knows Toronto, working clubs and bars down there, standing up at the door, freezing cold with my jacket on. Hi, sir, can I check your ID? Thanks, go ahead. Can I check your ID? Thanks, go ahead. Like that. Punching a clock, literally, chung. Whatever it was at the time, how much per hour. And kind of back to that. So at that point in my brain, I'm like, okay, this is not how it was supposed to go. I can't be back here working as a doorman back again. At the time, I think my father actually got ill, and he ended up with it seemed at the time to be very dire and very grave. And my parents and my mother and my brother urged me, like, listen, maybe you should come home. Your dad is not doing too well, and etc. And Dad tried to start a business at the time in Mandeville, where he was running for the seat, and Zachary needed help to run the business. And so I said, you know what, let me go home, because this is not really working out. So I packed up the stuff and all the gear and came back to Jamaica about 92, I think, 93, somewhere around there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's how I ended up back in Jamaica.
But while in Jamaica, that's when your introduction really to dancehall, as it relates to, producing and getting your hands in the mix, actually happened. Take us back actually to this defining moment for you once you were in Jamaica, and what actually led you into producing.
Well, when I came back, I got an apartment to rent and set up my little gear. In which I had brought back from Canada with me. And the first way to make money with gear in a studio is to do jingles, the advertising. So I'd spoken to friends when I came back, and I said, hey, we know a guy that works at the ad agency. I think it was Muyong, but at the time, you should really talk to him, because maybe he could help you learn how to make jingles. But that person was Marlon James, who now we know as award-winning author. Big up Marlon. But that was his humble beginnings too. He was working at Muyong Butler as an ad exec. And he taught me how to make jingles, basically, to be like, listen, this is the format, this is how you do it, it needs to be this long, it needs to kind of sound like this is the intro, And he'd throw work my way to do jingles. So I got a lot of jingle work from Marlon. And that's what paid the bills. While that's happening, remember, I have a studio set up to do this now. My brother Zachary got involved with a sound system called Syndicate Disco. So Zachary was like, listen, you have a studio, and I need to cut dub plates. Can we come on the dub plates by your studio? And at that time, the remarkable thing about my studio was probably the first DAW-enabled studio in entire Jamaica, because I brought back this system from Canada with the special built computers that had to work with it, and it was 8 tracks of digital audio. It was a precursor to Pro Tools. So before Pro Tools existed, it was called Session 8. It was the same company that went on to make Pro Tools, is what I'm saying to you. And I had that set up with a computer. Only person on the island recording to a computer at the time. Everybody else was still using big tape machines at big studios. But this was something quite fascinating, and especially for the dub plate thing, because I could just load up all of the rhythms in the computer. I know today it sounds like whatever. Back then, revolutionary. Yeah. You could put all the tracks in the computer, and people come to record. You record them digitally on the screen. You can cut, you can edit. But people are blown away, like nothing else ever existed. They could do dubs fast and quick. So Zachary started to bring artists through the studio to cut dub plates. So this is how I'm now meeting dancehall artists. So I'm meeting Cabra, and I'm meeting Spragga Benz and Dan Youth and Elephant Man and Roundhead and Monster Shot Crew, etc. So everybody, coming through to the dub plates. And then not only Zachary doing dub plates with Syndicate, now here's Renaissance coming to the dub plates at my studio. right? Because I'm in Jacksonville, right near the foot of Jacksonville, not far up. So I'm convenient to the Ligony area and everything else. So Renaissance is coming to the dub plates. Then Travelers is coming to the dub plates. Then Stone Love is coming to the dub plates. Then Adonai Sound System is coming to the dub plates. Babyface from New York is coming to the dub plates. So now I'm a popular hit place to come on the dubs. Because one, I'm not downtown in some area with a million people hanging around the place, pestering people. I'm up in Jacksonville. If you don't know the address, nobody can really be up there. And two, the speed and efficiency of the digital medium, which people thought were amazing, and I could burn a CD and give them at the end of it. Again, CD burning was like, who had a CD burner? It was a big excitement to be able to burn a CD and give to somebody, you know what I'm saying? Or on a DAT tape. So that's what kind of propelled the whole studio and into the world of dancehall. Started from doing dub plates and meeting artists and getting to know artists and artists getting to know me. But during this time, however, funnily enough, I wasn't really focused on trying to make dancehall. My head was still in Canada, still in touch with my old Canadian artists, and I was still making hip-hop beats.
Oh, wow.
Thinking that there'd be some kind of grand return one day, you understand, to get these kids to, you know, to start them and get them record deals and whatsoever. I wasn't really thinking about dancehall production, per se. Until then, it started to click to me. I don't know who else I used to speak to. I think at the time, Buccaneer used to hang out by the studio a lot, and we became pretty good friends, and he liked the whole vibe and the technology and that type of thing. I think I told him, I said, Buck, you know, I think I want a dancehall rhythm and put out a juggling. And he looked at me and said, what do you mean dancehall rhythm? You don't know about dancehall. I said, bro, I'm here working with these artists every day. What do you mean? Why not? I said, Jeremy, no, man, dancehall is not for you, man. Dancehall is not an uptown thing. I don't recommend you do that at all, bro. You don't want to be in that world at all, bro. And I'm thinking, okay, but the artists are coming here every day, you know, so it's not like it's going to be difficult for me to find people to record or to voice. I was like, all right, whatever. And I made my first rhythm, and it was called Fearless Rhythm. Maybe the only song people remember is Sean Paul, Baby Girl, Don't Cry No More, that record. And that was the first rhythm release which I put out. And it kind of all started from there.
How did you meet Sean Paul and ultimately became his manager?
So Sean, my brother Zachary, actually kind of quote unquote discovered Sean. He used to go, they used to be on Hillcrest Avenue, a place called Raphael's. It was an ice cream place, and it was an Italian restaurant and an ice cream thing at night. And on weekends, was it weekends, Thursday, Friday, they used to have an open mic jam session thing with a live band playing, and you could go up to the band, I guess, and say, hey, you guys know this song, you know that song they played, you'd sing. Like an amateur night, open night mic thing. And Zachary was at Raphael's once, and he saw Sean performing at Raphael's. One of the I think the band lead at the time was Rupert Bent Jr., rest in peace, who was running the night. And Sean had been doing work with Rupert Bent Jr. up at his studio, and he was trying to produce him. And Sean knew Rupert Bent Jr. and Rupert played with Third World, and he had recorded songs with them. So Sean knew the Third World guys, and he had a song with Carrot Jarrett called Long Time. You guys should look up on YouTube. It's hilarious. When you look at this, a black and white video called Long Time, Carrot Jarrett featuring Sean. I think it's Sean's first ever music video. And he sounds spot on like Supercat in the video. And Zachary came and found him and said, hey, you know, my brother just came back from Canada. You should link him. Gave him a business card. Now, why do I have a business card? Because I'm doing jingles. So I used to go around to the jingle houses and drop business cards so I could get work, right? So Sean came by the studio. Zach said, yo, you need to hear this guy, man. He sounds just like Supercat. And we're excited by the fact he sounded just like Supercat. Anyway, and Sean came up to the studio. He used to have an old VW bus he used to drive at the time. And he started coming to the studio and just checking it out. And my studio was a hangout place for young artists at that time, and because of the dub plates and stuff. So you'd have Lexus was there like before him bus. Like Vegas was there before him bus. Sean was there. Danute was there. Danute already bus at the time, but he was there hanging out a lot. A lot of artists, and we had a kind of like a living room area. We used to play video games, PlayStation, Sega Genesis, and then we had a little studio off to the corner, which was a little box, basically 3 people fitting it narrow like this, and there's like a little voice booth with a little glass, and like 1 or 2 people could fit in there. It was a little box, you know what I mean, so to speak. A nice box, but it was a little box. So basically people were hanging out playing video games while some people were recording, either dubs or real songs. So you pull up to the yard, underneath the tree, man them park up, man I bun them weed, eat them box food, the door is just open, You just walk in, you had a jam in the living room, you could play FIFA or PlayStation, or you maybe wait to do your dub. So it was that kind of environment that was kind of going on, that scene. So Sean was there every day, hanging out with the people, them is what I'm saying too, because he wants to meet artists too. People are coming through to the dub plates, he wants to be around them. And also, because he's young and upcoming, when the guys come to do the big dub plates that are paying for, we would turn to them and say, yo, you know, some of our young artists right there saying, but I don't know if you could take a dub plate off and I say, hey, let me hear him. And so Sean would go around the booth and do his little thing, and bust the black back away the red pan the top. Again, it's me a drink and me just not stop. And we say, bop, bop, bop. And it's like to say, you know, they say that tune not bad in there. And they'd take the song for free, but we'd get now a dub plate. So Sean would have a dub plate with Travelers, a dub plate with Stone Love, a dub plate with whichever sound, Adonai, for free. Yeah, that was basically how we sort of let people know who Sean was. He was doing the dub plates for the sound systems. They were eager to play them because, as I keep saying, he sounded so much like Supercat that it was quite a novelty. So he slowly developed into his own style, of course, obviously. But at the time, that's kind of like what happened. And Sean always, he had the respect of the industry people as being somebody who was a talented DJ and putting together his words and his melodies and his hooks and everything. And so we were kind of eager to support him, to be honest with you. Sean, at the same time, even though he was an uptown kid, like, he came from a very kind of humble background too as well. You know what I mean? He had been to different high schools in Jamaica, not necessarily the best student. You know, his father was mixed up in a lot of, you know, illegal activity, gone to prison, was in GP, was locked up. Sean's mom was kind of struggling. She's an artist, not a musical artist, but a painter, artist herself. She used to paint and stuff like that. So he wasn't really coming from any kind of background where you know what I mean, he was comfortable, let's put it that way. And music was his refuge. He just managed to kind of meet somebody similar to him who was also another kind of uptown kid, but who was also deeply steeped into music. And like when I met Sean, I mean, throughout high school, I was listening to the early dancehall, as I said, like, you know, the Josey Wales and the General Trees and like all that type of stuff. Me and my friends used to listen to it. We used to get cassettes from, you know, the cassette man them down on, you know, Constance Spring or whatever. We used to trade dance cassettes and listen to them. We weren't old enough to go to a dance. And I think the first exposure to that would probably like House of Leo and those things. We were too young to go to like Skateland and those things at the time. But when I met somebody like Sean, I'd say, yo, what's your favorite artist? And he said, Major Worries. Now, if anybody could say Major Worries at that time when Shabba Ranks was running the place, for example, do you know is somebody who really deep into dancehall music to know Major Worries? Because it's like a precursor to Shabba Ranks. You know what I'm saying? So, and we also shared a love for like lots of the hip-hop stuff as well, and Slick Rick and, you know what I mean, and Run DMC and etc. A lot of that type of stuff too. So I think musically we kind of gelled very well that way. But the 8 Jacksonville Road was an incubator. That was the address where we were for talent. A lot of people kind of came out of that studio. Assassin recorded one of his first records at that studio. He was in his school uniform, his Calabar school uniform. His big brother used to bring him up there and record a song for me called How We Roll in Alexis Cruise Control. You know what I mean? One of his first records. Mr. Vegas, what's in the air? Nike Air. The song at Bus Vegas was recorded at that studio. He used to come there with Don Youth. Don Youth used to parody him and say, I'm a singer this now, I'm a singer this. And then the rhythm, he eventually split from Don Youth, but he used to come to the studio and he begged me to be on the rhythm. He tells that story himself about the broken jaw and, you know, his muscle wide shut, and so that's why the song sounded that way, you know what I mean? Lexus to some of his early records. We used to go down to Barbican and watch Lexus perform, which sound system was at the time. Early Lexus, man, we no better can cook. Think you're there for your pretty look, you live up. You know what I mean? That type of Lexus, and he was there doing dub plays. A lot of people, Red Rat used to pass through there too as well, even though he had his thing over at with Danny Brown and them, and they were doing good. But those acts used to come through a lot. Early TOK came through that studio. I mixed their first record, this record called Mona Lisa. When they sounded like a barbershop quartet type of style. Mona Lisa, like it sounded like that. And this early TOK, no dreadlocks, no tattoos, no boy pose. Like they weren't in that era yet. You know what I mean? Shams is a guy that kind of took them to that level. But when they first came, that first record I mixed for them there at that studio. There's a lot of firsts, man. A lot of people that came through that place, as I said, and kind of got a break from that studio and that environment.
When did you, though, get that stamp of approval from your peers? Because I know initially in the conversation, he said, Evil Buccaneer was saying to you, no, man, Jeremy, you too uptone to the dancehall, like that type of thing. But ultimately, you had like the playground rhythm. Was it when that rhythm came out that you actually got the stamp of approval from your peers in terms of you being like a serious dancehall producer?
100%. Playground rhythm was a rhythm that did that. I mean, Fearless rhythm was good, and the rhythm was more popular than the songs. So they liked the actual rhythm itself, and a lot of selectors would use it and cut dub plates on the rhythm because they were energetic and it was aggressive and it sounded good on dub. You know what I mean? To play out live. But yeah, Playground rhythm, the first batch of it is what got people's attention. I think the first big breakout song was Cabra, called Pet and Pamper. I want a hot girl, them with them hot hairstyle, they Pet and Pamper like baby. That Cabra record, that was massive on the rhythm. And Spragga Benz, no long performer, strong performer, like that was a big record too as well. And those are like big artists I'd gotten, the biggest artists at the time. I'd recorded before that, I'd recorded Future Troubles, which known as Fambo, but he was Future Troubles back then. And I'd recorded Roundhead and those guys. But the Playground rhythm, I think with those artists on it, Don Youth as well, his song on there as well. And that first kind of round of records, I mean, the Sean Paul was on it too, Man, I Wanna Bait, that stuff. And remember at the time, Mirage nightclub had just opened up in Sovereign. For those who can remember, Mirage is where Amar's clothing store is now, right? Beside a Little Hardware in Sovereign. So it was Mirage nightclub. It was a big excitement in Kingston at the time, big multi-level nightclub with TVs on the plexiglass in the floor and DJ booth high up on a railing, and it was fantastic, amazing thing. VIP room with pool table, big excitement. And Renaissance DJs were playing inside a Mirage, and Dr. Dre was in there, and guys like Ramo, who subsequently migrated, who was a top DJ right then at the time. So Renaissance is locking down Mirage. So of course now my songs are playing in Mirage, because remember Renaissance and us, Syndicate and Renaissance, two soul sisters, are playing everything. So it was like Travelers Stone Love, Syndicate, Renaissance, like all the dances, like two downtown sounds, two uptown sounds. So my dub plates are being rinsed by Renaissance, therefore means my artists and people who I'm recording, Renaissance is playing them and promoting the hell out of it. So they're pushing the records in the club and pushing the rhythm. And the whole of Jamaica now leave from Cactus, come across the bridge and coming up to Kingston now to Mirage, right? Brand new nightclub. So the songs are getting mass amount of exposure at that point in time and playing. And then by this time, of course, now it starts to seep into radio as well, because we're servicing radio too at the time. But radio was very, very difficult to get to at the time. Very difficult. I mean, you had to physically go there and drop off records to people. Again, no MP3s, that type of thing. And the radio jocks sort of like, yo, we don't know, we don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Whoa. Plus also, a lot of people wanted to be paid for their services to play your records on the radio, all right? So this is not a secret, it's pure, this exists. I'm not accusing any one particular person, but it was very rampant, and I'm sure to a less extent nowadays with the internet. So nobody could afford that anyway. But Sean, I knew a few people. He knew GT Taylor because his dad was living in Ocha at a point in time, and I was next door neighbor to GT, so we used to give GT records. And we knew one and two people like that as well, that on radio, but not a hell of a lot of people. We had known Colin Hines because of the association with Dave Kelly. And so me and Dave coming up were kind of like competitors at the time. I've had my first little studio before Dave had his studio. He came and looked at my studio first to say, what was this guy going on with? After the artists were recording for Dave, like we started recording for me. So the Spragga and the Cabra and Chico and a lot of those guys were like his camp were recording for me. So he was coming up there and saying, like, who is this guy that all of my acts are recorded for? That type of thing. You know what I mean? So through that, I met Colin Hines because he was like on the periphery, thought of trying to, who else is this guy with it? You know what I mean? So we had a couple of people like that pushing and playing records. But the playground rhythm definitely, so that by that time now, when you have established artists recording for you, people look at you differently. Like, oh, well, if Cabra and Spragga Benz are recording for this man, it must be a proper producer. It's not just a bunch of unknown Sean Paul and Dirty Cup crew and Daddy Gone rest in peace and some little guys we never heard of. You know what I mean? I think that's what kind of established it. And that Mirage nightclub thing is what led BEENIE Man to come and record. Because the rhythm was out and it was doing well enough as it was. And BEENIE heard it at Mirage playing. And used to see Sean and them hanging out all the time in the club and saw the effect it was having in the club. And he's the one that said, yo, tell Jeremy I'll come for the rhythm. And I was like, all right, what about Chicken, rest in peace. That was a part of the Dirty Cup crew with Sean. He called me in the morning and said, did we have cell phones yet? I don't know if cell phones were really a thing. Well, like a house phone that we had. I'm so old, I'm dating myself in this interview. But he called me and he said, yo, BEENIE say I come for the rhythm and germs. And I was like, what? Yeah, man, I see me in the club last night at Mirage. I'm saying I come for the rhythm. I was like, Chicken, what are you talking? All right, whatever, man. Hang up the phone. Back to sleep. Then I hear somebody buzzing at my door. This is early, at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like, which mad person is buzzing the door at 8 o'clock? People would come there to the dub plates now, but not that early. So I go by the door and I look through the people like this. And I see this Rasta guy in the people. You know, a people is like somebody's standing close to it. You can't sit behind them. You just sit their face. A guy I don't recognize. Later on, it was an artist named Mankind. I didn't know that at the time. Anyway, so I'm like, who the hell is this brother? I'm not, whatever, go back to my bed. Buzz again, beep, buzz like 20 minutes later, go back and look. Now, this time he had moved away from the people, so I can see. And now I can see BEENIE Man and some other people sitting down underneath the tree in the. So I was like, shit, BEENIE Man, fucking freak. Boom, go click, wash this.
Remember this radio, Jeremy.
You know what I mean? Fly the door, say, yeah, man, I have to swag on and say, yeah, come for the rhythm, like typical BEENIE Man thing. Like I've never met him before, never seen him in real life, nothing. But that time, BEENIE Man was a mega star. Like, not to say he isn't now, but at the time it was him and Killer were the ultimate of dancehall. So imagine this man is at your door, my little apartment to come and record. So he comes around, open up the studio now, turn on my thing. So I had a little instrumental of the rhythm which I'd made, you know, like you met all the songs and then we had a little instrumental mix. I said, boy, this is the fastest way to record him. Let me just put up the instrumental. You know what I mean? And then if anything, I can change the rhythm later and arrange it to his song or whatever. And BEENIE Man came in there and did the song in practical. It was about an hour, but he did the first 2 verses, I think, within like 15 minutes. He had clearly written out the song in his head and know what he wanted to do and everything, and he just kind of hit it through. And then by the time now, the hour had passed now, I guess word had spread, Chicken must have called people. So then by the time I look now, here's Sean, here's Chicken, everybody is there. The excitement is that because BEENIE Man is on the rhythm now, the rhythm is going to get played even more. So it's better for us to get a marquee artist on the rhythm. So our songs will play more now in the juggling. Because now they're going to have to play the BEENIE Man, which means I got to juggle it and play the Sean Paul and the Dirty Cup and the Chicken and the you know what I mean? And the Vegas and everything. And that's kind of, I mean, that just sealed it. The BEENIE Man record just sealed it. That was the monster. That just put everything on the map.
Amazing. No, you managed Sean Paul from 1997 to 2011, you know, during the peak of his global rise. What were the biggest challenges of managing an artist on that level? And what lessons did you learn that still guide your approach to artist development today?
The reason why I started managing Sean is because I was making hit records for other artists and the artists weren't going anywhere. So I'd done the BEENIE Man record, which was a smash hit all over the place. BEENIE Man got signed to Virgin because of that record. He got a publishing deal because of that record. But I was always on the periphery of what was happening. And then I saw them make certain moves, which I thought weren't the right moves to really propel BEENIE Man to the right space. I done a record with Devante and Tonto Metro called Give It To Her, which was #1 Z100 record in New York. Getting 60, 70 spins a week, if you know how radio works in the US. That's like a massive 70 spins a week is 10 times a day on radio. Just imagine that. That's a smash hit record, right, on any station. So, and the artists weren't going anywhere. So when I had Sean and I was frustrated, I said, like, you know what? I'm going to make steps to kind of do something with this guy. So he was recording for me, but he got hit songs with Tony Kelly and with Steele and Clevie and Chilala Boom Boom Chile with Vegas. And he had Deport Them with Tony Kelly. And they started playing heavily in New York. At the time when Sean used to hang out by the studio, people used to call number on the record label, my record label, for information about Sean. And they would just be like, hey, want to book this guy for a show? And I'd be like, okay, he'd usually just be sitting right down there playing video games. And they'll say, you know, how much you getting charged? So I said, well, I don't know. I look at Sean, I said, $2,000. And I said, yeah, man, $2,000. All right, how many tickets? I said to him, you want me to come with you? He said, yeah, come. He said, send 2 tickets. So it started off very casually like that, actually. I'm a producer, and he's there hanging out as a guy I'm producing. And I just go on a little gigs with him. I wouldn't even collect any money from it, to be honest with you. I was making more money producing. And just go with him. So I'd go with him and act as his manager and his DJ most of the times and play the music for him and kind of come home. And it started like that. when it picked up into New York now with records playing heavily for him, I took it a lot more serious. I was like, you know what? I should really focus on this kid right now because he's getting hits from other producers. So I don't need to really be worried about him getting hits, me producing. I should put more time into managing the career. And Sean at the time was like, yeah, man, Germs, love how I deal with the thing, man. Let's do it. Da, 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 da. Nothing formal, nothing written out on paper, no agreements, no nothing. And that's how the whole thing kind of started. So it started there, but I used my notoriety with my Who Am I record to kind of help to break him. So I go to New York, I find an attorney because I need to deal with my Who Am I record because now it's big and the little agreement between me and VP, it had to be further managed. And I got a publishing deal out of the record too as well. So when I'm dealing with these people, I'm saying, oh, by the way, I'd like to introduce you to this guy, Sean Paul, who's my local artist. When Patrick Moxie, who was at Virgin at the time, who came to Jamaica to sign Beenie Man, he came to see me as a producer to be like, we're signing him because of your record. We'd love you to be on the project. I'd be like, oh, and by the way, I have a young artist named Sean Paul, and I'd give him the stuff, and he'd be like, oh, okay, cool, I'll take a look at it. Wasn't really interested at the time. But as time developed, they all rang back the phone. Hey, that guy Sean Paul, man, he has records playing here in New York. He's still your guy, right? So I use that influence to kind of get through the door to put him in front of people's faces, record company people, publishers, and that type of thing. So in doing that now, I mean, the story could take 3 hours. I'm trying to condense it. But in doing that now, I think the major thing of what you're trying to ask me is this. Well, what my take on it is really this. When I started to interact with people outside of Jamaica, and especially in New York, I started to realize that they were very interested in the business aspect of the record, much more than the creative aspect of the record. They're interested in numbers, how many spins on the radio, how the record is performing, what's the feedback that they're getting, the feedback from the clubs. They would literally do things like have club DJs play records, and those guys would like record the crowd and send it back to them to make them see how it would respond and react. And they're interested in markets and how to break records and in which markets. And there's a sequence in how you break records. Like, you start in this market first, and then if it's playing in that market would pick, it would spread, and it would go to this market and etc. There's a whole manner which they'd have to do to kind of break records. And I had to understand and learn that very quickly. So you're learning the language of speaking to record company people and record promotion people. Now, we'd got to a meeting, and Sean wants to play them the new album, and he's excited, and he's playing them the album, and he's going through every track, and yo, this one wicked and this bad, and da-da-da-da, and they're listening. Oh, yeah, it sounds great. When he would leave the room, they'd immediately start talking to me about numbers. They don't really care. I shouldn't say they don't care about music. That's a harsh way to put it, but they're more interested in the numbers. So, in other words, the record company people, as far as they're concerned, the disc jockeys that play on the radio, the guys that play on the street, and those kind of guys are the guys who care about the music. We care about the numbers. We let them tell us if the record is a hit. Pretty much. And what I'm saying? So I'm there as a manager of an artist. I got to talk numbers with them. I can't talk about, yo, we did this wicked song with Sean and so and it bad and, yo, second verse, wicked, like a mush. I can't speak like that to them. I got to talk numbers with them and markets. And I said, Jeremy, what's going on? Okay, in Tampa, the record seems to be picking up over here. It's kind of dead there. We're thinking about doing a promo show event in Tampa. We want to get Sean in front of those people. We're going to do a barter with a radio station to get more spins. That area looks good. We're going to go here. I don't think we should do that anymore. You know what I mean? I would use that to kind of guide the process, and also guide the process with the booking agents as to where to take shows and where not to take shows. To be like, record is hot here. Let's take the show there. Even though there's more money for a show over here, but in that market, the record ain't reacting as well. You know what I mean? So you have to start to learn how to navigate it like that. So that's one of the first things I would tell you.
You mentioned that about the record company, because since of late we see we're more entertainers, for example, once the deal ends or they have severed ties with a record label, we realize that they are, celebrating through the social media spaces, like celebrating the breakaway from the label. Why do you think this is? And do you feel like it's a sign of empowerment, or are entertainers in general walking away from valuable opportunities?
It's a valuable opportunity that they've all missed. Of course, they're going to go on social media and make it seem as though it's their decision and they've mutually parted ways and all. It's garbage. Nobody mutually parts ways in record contracts. You get dropped. You get dropped because of non-performance. It's as simple as that. But you're going to go on social media. Of course, you're going to try and keep your thing up and make it look like I'm good and I'm doing my own thing now and I'm independent and rah, 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 rah. Fact of the matter is that to make it to the level of success that most of them crave, they cannot do it as an independent artist. Impossible. You'll never be able to do it. Independent artists, just using social media and those kind of tools, will always keep you on that sort of like buzz level with like, you know, your little community which is around you. You're not going to get on major television networks anymore. You're not going to get big collabs with big artists anymore. You're not going to do big tours anymore. None of that if you're not on a major label. So what would they do? Come on social media and cry and say, no, I feel terrible? Of course not. Everybody's going to be upbeat and say, yeah, man, doing my own thing now and you don't know, etc., etc. You get what I'm saying? But if you don't believe me, then you just look at the track record of what they've done and see at a certain point, the label's going to be like, you have not performed. We cannot continue to invest in you. So that's what happens. It's unfortunate. And this thing requires a lot of, it's still a gamble, this music business, to be very honest with you. And it requires a little bit of magic as well. Nobody can have everything put together as best as you think it can. It just don't work. You know what I'm saying? And some people just hardly do anything and a song just kind of works. So a lot of that is involved in it as well. But I think you have two choices, you know. You don't need to necessarily be signed to a major label to have a great career as an artist, especially out of Jamaica. Tons of people have had fantastic careers, fans all over the world, tour everywhere. You know what I mean? Sold out shows all over the place, all kinds of money, car, house, all kind of something. Legends in this industry without being signed to a major label. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but if you crave the attention that a major label gives you, if you want to be on Jimmy Fallon, you know what I mean, on a late night TV performing, if you want that, you're not doing it without a major label. It's never going to happen for you. That's just how the system's set up that way. But we wish everybody the best still, you know what I mean? Your career is your career. There's ups and downs. People rebound. The various things, it takes various shapes and forms. So I'm not trying to, you know, piss on anybody's take on them being an independent artist. You know, more power to you. You do your thing. But that's really the reality.
I want to get your opinion on this, though. VYBZ KARTEL's international presence, you know, seemed to have ignited global interest in dancehall. Do you think this is a turning point for the genre?
I don't think it has ignited global interest in dancehall at all. It has ignited global interest in Kartel. And he's a master of that. He's extremely charismatic, you know what I mean? As a very intelligent guy. And he's been making good use of his opportunity now with his freedom to go out there and promote himself. One would only hope, well, from my perspective, that good music follows. Because to me, it's a lot of promotion and no music. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't think it's ignited in dancehall per se. That would be my take. I think its fascination is him and his story and where he's coming from and the legend that he has become from his exploits. And you know what I'm saying? I think that's what fascinates people on the most. I don't really see a rebound back to dancehall unless he starts making records which start tearing up the place again. And then the people are like, oh, wow, time for dancehall again. Because now you have a thing called African dancehall, which has just been ratified by Apple Music with their own chart and its own genre. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to be on the look for that. So you thought, you know what I mean? Reggaeton was beating you bad, and then Afrobeats has been beating us bad now for years. Now you have African dancehall. That's what everybody should be worried about. And don't worry so much about people on social media, you know what I'm saying? Just racking up views and people and it's all entertaining, but there's no music to follow it, is the point I'm trying to make. You need to have the music to follow for it to actually make a real impact.
Based on your experience and exposure, especially with, you know, music insiders, looking at the genre, dancehall today in particular, what do you think is actually missing? And do you buy into the notion that it's all about a numbers game? People are watching, you know, their streams and that type of thing. And once their streams are up, then ultimately for many people that translates as success.
Well, I don't know. You want to have streams up on TikTok as success on YouTube, but you don't have any songs. So what's the success? That you have 10 million people following you? That puts money in your pocket? I don't know how that makes business sense. That's usually a precursor to saying, okay, now I have captured this audience to know I can market music to. Who can go out and stream my music, which will actually make the money for everybody involved and make the impact. But just watching me on social media with my fans and my followers, like, you know, living my life and stuff. I don't know why that's deemed as success to them. And maybe it's the first part of it, but I think the music definitely has to follow. You know what I'm saying? I think that's kind of like where you're at right now. And one thing I think we have lost track of is that people buy into music because of culture. You like country music because you like the culture of country music. You like the storytelling. You like the songs, the heartbreak records, you know what I mean, the love songs, that type of thing. It's a culture you're buying into. We're bought into Jamaican music, people in the world, because of our culture. What it means to be Jamaican, where we come from, what food we eat, how do we party, what kind of girls we like. You know what I'm saying? What is our daily living? It's a culture that people enjoy. And when you lose a culture, you're going to lose the audience. So if you sit on Jamaica and talk about, well, I'm not a dancehall artist, I'm an R&B artist, I'm a rapper, I'm a this, I'm a that, then you're throwing away the culture. Because nobody abroad cares about nobody in Jamaica being a rapper. But they have tons of rappers. You understand what I'm trying to say? I think that's one of the major problems that we face. We're so caught up in social media and everybody's so caught up in like wanting to be like Americans and live that life and drive those cars and live in those houses. That's all fine and good, but they sacrifice the music for it and say, oh, you know, I need to get there. This reggae dancehall thing, this is too hard to break through. I'm going to be a rapper. Let me make some like a trap style beats and let me try like a hip hop flow and let me try rap. And that's what they mistake over and over and over and over and over and over that they will not learn. BEENIE Man made that critical mistake trying to sing on a Janet Jackson record, first of all. So many people have made those mistakes back in the past. The people that stuck to the thing, like Sean and Shaggy them, are the ones that work. Like, we will do collabs with hip-hop artists and R&B artists, but we are doing our music. We're doing reggae. We are doing dancehall. That's what people want to hear. But you've had a last few generations now that throw that out the window and they say, nah, screw that, doesn't matter. And it suffers because of it. Jamaicans might get excited, like, yo, wicked star and bad like hip hop beat and the man can rap dog, him have flow, and nobody else in the world cares about that. They want to buy into our culture. So it's about redefining our culture. Not saying you must be like, you know, Jeremy who is in his 50s and my 90s culture. No, find your current day culture, whatever that may be. You know what I'm saying? And move that forward, because that's what they're buying into. It's not about the beat and the rhythm and the this, and it's about the culture. If you're representing the culture right, they'll buy into it. But dancehall artists talking about, you know, driving Murcielagos and wearing Prada and all, that's not our culture. I don't know how that, they're trying to imitate hip-hop cultures, I guess what I'm trying to tell you. You know what I'm saying? And it falls flat on its face. And don't ask me, ask all the artists who have been getting dropped from their labels.
Wow. Now, is there any entertainer right now that you look at and say, yes, this person has potential or can go to the next level?
No, not particularly. I don't really watch the industry like that in terms of any one person. I think when you actually start to do something, you know what I mean, then people will take kind of notice of it. It's that kind of industry, you know. It's not our problem is in Jamaica that we treat music as a social program and not as something that requires musical excellence to get somewhere. So just because you come from the ghetto, we just want to support it. I'm like, yeah, man, them you have for boss. They don't know. It's a social program to us. Instead of saying like, no, he's actually the one with the most talent. Let's push him. Nobody really looks at it that way. Or he's the one writing the best songs. It just becomes who is the loudest man on social media, who look like him come from the worst scenario, who need a boss. So let us back that person and support that person. It's always been like that to a certain extent, but within that process, they will be able to marshal themselves and say, no, but your thing is garbage and this thing is good. And if you're around artists in the 90s, they'll bring up their little guys or seconds to try and DJ. And you see them tell them, no, bro, that tune now work. And then manage them in such a way like, we know that we're all coming from nothing. We're trying to get somewhere. But what you're doing isn't good enough. The standard that you need to be at is this standard. Look at the standard of Capleton. Look at the Sizzler. Look at the Beanie. Look at the Bounty. They were held to a standard. Today, anybody comes out with a song, jumps on YouTube, makes some big exciting music video, and everybody's all fire emoji. Yeah, man, wicked can bust, blah, blah, blah. And we don't have any filter even within ourselves as a community to be able to say like, nah, this is not good. You need to do better. Star, I'm gonna fight down my thing, dog, and I'm gonna hate on my thing. No, bro, we're trying to encourage you to do better. You need to have a sense of that to permeate the industry, to keep pushing each other to do better. So when we do that, when you ask the question, who do I see out there potential? All of them have the potential. Potentially, they all have the potential. You know what I'm saying? As to whether or not they will be willing to listen to anybody or collectively amongst themselves say, you know what we're doing now is not of the level. Music videos look fantastic in Jamaica. What's the visual thing has gone through the roof. It's insane. All music videos look amazing. The directors are doing wicked jobs. The videos will trick you into the song is amazing. My son's 17 years old. I don't want to hear a new song. As I play it, I say, look on the phone. I say, no, look, just play the song. Dad, you have to look. Why do I have to look? I use my ears to judge music. If you're an American and you're using Spotify and Apple Music, you're not watching music videos. Please think about this.
Listening.
That's how records stream. Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, whatever, Tidal. They're listening to records. They're not watching videos. In this country, we become obsessed with the video and the visual and the TikTok and whatever. And it's just bizarre to me. It's not so much of a music thing. It's an attention thing is what it has become into. So when that happens now, and as I said, not me, but look at the tail of the tape of the artists who are losing their record deals. That tells you that internationally, people are saying, we're not investing in these acts anymore. They don't stream any music, any hits for us. We've done all we can do with them. So if they just want to be in Jamaica on social media every day, that's good. But we are not investing anymore into trying to break these people. Because this music, hey, look, African dancehall, that has numbers. We like that. Let's give that its own genre. You know what I'm saying? It's worrying. That's the thing I think that you have to look at.
No. You actually have your Harding Music Academy. Let's talk a little bit about that. And with some of what you have just mentioned to me, is this information that you are giving to persons who call upon your expertise?
So unfortunately, we had to shut that down. It wasn't working. The amount of traction that it needed to get, I couldn't get the amount of groundswell of it. It required a lot of investment to kind of advertise those things, to get the kind of move. So I had to shut it down. But in its defense, though, I think what came out of it was me teaching up at IRIE for a few years and lecturing in music business management and artist management. So it's that sort of willingness to, people have a thing about, if you give back and each one teach one. I think that's kind of my way at the time, especially up at IRIE, you know what I'm saying? I've been able to try and do that. So that's sort of a passion of mine as well. But it depends, you know what I'm saying? Some people, the information filters to some people don't really care. I think my perspective, I try to put it in the context of Jamaican music, because there's a lot of information out there which people get online, which doesn't really apply to our music and our scene. You know what I mean? It applies to hip hop, perhaps. It applies to different kind of genres where they have more audience, where they can afford to take more risks, where they can have more avenues to sort of, earn an income in music. So they'll say a lot of these things and people talking about, like, for example, like all these hip hop acts online talking about, man, screw these labels, man. I'm going fully independent, right? That is where they're getting that thing from. Not, however, realizing that little hip hop act there is in a place in the United States where he can potentially have an audience of 2, 3, 4, 5 million people who will just still like him as an independent artist and stream his music. And maybe he doesn't need a label per se. You know what I'm saying? Afrobeats artists, Africa, what is the audience like? Some of those African streaming services, 60, 70 million people. You know what I'm saying? Using those streaming services for them too as well. Reggaeton alone, go and look at a reggaeton video on YouTube. 200 million views. They're not signed to major labels. They have the audience to support them. So they can brag and boast about being independent. You understand? We can't follow that because we don't have those numbers. So that doesn't make sense for us to try and attack what they're doing and say, yeah, man, for real, my girls do it that way too. You're never going to get those numbers. I had a big discussion years ago when Spotify was going to officially be launched in Jamaica. And people are saying, Jeremy, you're wrong. Wait, once you see Spotify's available to Jamaicans, they're going to stream and people are going to make money and nothing makes no difference. It's not our culture. We don't pay for music. We never have. You know what I'm saying? We used to go dance or part. It's a live music experience. We make money off a live performance. Is where the majority of the music money is made, first of all. And the next place to make money off of is publishing, which is records being played on the radio, the same format that says dead and extinct. That's where you're going to make money from. You never made money selling records. So why is everybody bawling about, I'm not making any money off of streaming, Jeremy, you're wrong. But you didn't make money selling records either. Sean didn't make money selling records. He made money off of publishing and shows, because the record company has to take back all the expenses to promote your stuff out of your record royalty. So you sell 1 million records, you're not going to see nothing. They've already spent $1 million making 3 music videos. You know what I'm saying? And flying all over the place and doing the promotion. So this belly aching about Spotify and not paying us, and that's nothing new. You make your money from publishing and from your live shows. You know what I mean? And particularly our music. We don't have as much licensing opportunities like pop and hip hop and R&B and those kind of people. I need to mention it, in the height of our record, our big record, when Sean had big records and get them synced like a TV show, it's like 10 seconds. That'd be like 150 grand. 10 seconds of a hit song syncing in a show. Wow. That's where you're making actual real money from. So in our model here in Jamaica, and I mentioned who it is, but there was an artist years ago who got very famous, had a good international exposure, and never really took up the kind of local part of what, in my potential, what I could have done. And years later, I spoke to them and I said, that you could have made a lot of money and had a great career just doing things from Jamaica, and they didn't understand. I'm saying you could have propelled your situation into making more local hit records, and you could have gotten on tours, and you could have been famous on tour. Like, in their brain, the only way to make it is to get signed to the major and get, you understand what I'm saying? And not realize that all these people out here who are just not signed to major labels, but understand how to manipulate the Jamaican music system, can be popular and successful the same way. That's the model. The model cannot be sitting at home, downloading tracks from YouTube, recording yourself in your kitchen, and then spending all your money to make some big music video and just put on YouTube and think you're a boss and the major label are going to pick you up. And that's not the model. You know what I'm saying? That's not working. And you're going to see, like, as time goes by, when people are losing deals. Listen, I don't want to sound like doomsday man here. I'm just telling you what I can see in front of me.
I love the honesty. I wish I had more time, because the time is chipping away, really. And your story is so extensive, but you also have a wealth of knowledge and information that I really wanted to get out today as well. But you and Sean
people
Paul,
are fascinated with Jamaican culture. Let me just say that. So
yes.
You're always going to have the potential for Jamaican music and Jamaican artists to get somewhere in the world. The world loves our culture, period. From the track and field, the music, the weed, the partying, the girls, the women, everything. They love all the food. They love Jamaican culture. And you can see all of them tapping into it and using it. You can see Kai Senat tapping into it, Drake tapping into it. Everybody's always coming to Jamaica to get them bust and to do the live stream and to do something with a Jamaican artist. They're always looking for our energy out of Jamaica. So it's the potential is always going to be there. I'm not here to tell you that we've just ruined it and it can't be revived. It's always going to be there. It's just how to harness it properly and move forward with it.
Amazing. No, Jeremy, finally, before you leave us, you and Sean Paul, you created such magic, of Dirty Rock, Temperature, Grammys, so many historic ventures. What actually led to that separation? People always say, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
You saved the final question for one of the toughest and longest questions, eh? I think the short answer basically is that we've done an album. After those two albums, we did a third album that tanked and did not do very well at all. And Sean got very depressed, as you could imagine, and very disillusioned with the whole industry at the time, and kind of got into a position where people started to say to him, you need a change of direction, which is why you need a new manager. That's what they put into his head at the time. And he made that decision to say, let me go and try and find a new manager. And the closest analogy I can put to it is that when a team starts to lose their father coach, you don't look at the players, you know what I'm saying? And so maybe the players are the issue. So I think that's kind of like that's the best way I can kind of sum it up. I don't know necessarily if, since that has happened, his career, of course, has evolved and he's still extremely successful. But in terms of the music and stuff which he's putting out, I'm not so sure if he ever recaptured that area of the string of hits of the records that we did together when I was managing him and the people at the time. So it was a decision which he made, and the people around him thought that was the best decision to make. And I had no choice but to just accept it and kind of move on, basically. We didn't speak for quite a while over it, as you can imagine. And then many years later, we started to kind of have a more cordial relationship and kind of speak back again. So I think that's kind of like where we're at right now. But as to specifically why, you maybe have to interview him to ask him for him to answer that question. But I think that's the best answer that I can give you.
He has been on the road to success, but he didn't get into the specifics. I think you gave us a lot more than he gave us. But something out there, though. I want if you can just rubbish the conspiracy theories out there as to why Sean Paul has never done a music video with Beyonce. We hear all kind of stories. What is actually the real story?
Oh, the Beyonce situation, basically, they wanted Sean on the record. They sent the track to Jamaica. And we recorded the track, basically like a demo, and we sent it back. And they said, okay, great, send the files. And Sean said, no, I don't want to send files. I want to meet her. So let them fly me to Florida or whatever. I want her to come to studio and meet her. So we organized that. Sean went, he actually met her. He re-recorded his verses on the song there and he got it done. Song came out. A little bit of a hiccup with the song because there was a publishing claim on the record, which their attorneys tried to put back on us. That's the first warning shot of their behavior. They said, there's a claim on there from a reggae artist, so we have to take it out of Sean's publishing. We said, what are you talking about? Whereas a claim from IRIE Kamosi. I'm stepping it hotter this year, so that's coming out of Sean's publishing. I said, but Sean didn't do that part. Well, it's a reggae part, so he must have done the part. I said, no, Beyonce sings that part. But Sean was influencing her to do it. I said, no. So I had to send back the files that she originally sent to us with her singing, I'm stepping it hotter this year. Don't you like it? In the record to prove that Sean had nothing to do with it. So eventually we did that. Annie Kamosi got publishing on that record. Go Annie, I'm sure he made a nice food off it, right? And his publishers. So that was the first sort of kind of real warning shot about it. The second time was she's coming to Jamaica to the Sumfest. So I was like, okay, Wicked, she's coming. She wants to perform the song at Sumfest. Not a problem. So they make arrangements. They come down. I'm talking to the manager at the time, her dad, Matthew Knowles. Yeah, Sean's going to be down in Mobay from this time. That. Yeah, man, okay, no problem. Get down to Montego Bay. They have rehearsal, sound check. Beyonce doesn't go to sound check. She sends a stand-in to go to sound check because basically they're not really checking sound. They're doing camera blocking. So where she's walking on the stage and they're putting marks where she needs to be and etc. So she sends somebody to do that so we don't see Beyonce at all. Then when it's the actual Showtime performance, some places with the tents backstage and everybody, Beyonce doesn't do any of that. So she comes from her limo, clear the backstage area, walk straight onto the stage with a mic and perform. So the only time Sean actually saw her again was when him walk onto the stage, then him lock eyes with her. So the whole time she came to Jamaica, Sumfest, there's no backstage, there's no hotel link up, there's nothing like that. Nothing like that. Okay, fine, no problem. So we'll do that. Then they're going to New York now to the MTV Music Awards. So I'm talking with my label president, Craig Kalman at Atlantic, and he's like, yeah, and he's talking to Matthew Knowles. I'm in his office to jump on the phone. Hey, Matthew, what's up? Yeah, man, no problem. How you doing? Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, we're going to hook this up, make this happen, that kind of talk. Then eventually the word comes back like, Matthew Knowles called back and said, we don't need Sean for the show. Okay, why? What happened? They said, we're just going to perform like a little medley and we're not really using his part, so he doesn't really need to be there. So, all right, fine. So we all had tickets to go to MTV Awards anyway. So we went and sat in the audience and she comes on to do the song, lo and behold, and runs right into Sean's verse. Sean not on stage. The camera pans to Sean in the audience and pans back to her on the stage. And everybody's like wondering, so why is this man sitting in the audience if his song is playing with her?
Wow.
Afterwards, we had heard she also did, after that song, she did Crazy in Love with Jay-Z, which was a big record they were trying to promote. Jay-Z came out and performed with her. We had heard afterwards that Jay-Z them didn't want anybody else to be on the show but him as a featured act. So no Sean, just him. When they were doing the music video, we knew the director of the video. The director had done another video for Sean, and he kept calling me to say, bro, I don't know what's going on with you on this camp. I said, what happened? Every good scene shot with Sean, her dad keeps saying, cut it out. Wow. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, cut that out, but he looks too good. I don't want him overshadowing Babe. Cut that out. And they kept behaving like this, cut out. And so they chop up the video. There's no scenes with the two of them together in the video. When they went to do MTV Awards in Europe, it was the same thing, the behavior they were having again. They didn't want him to be in any shot with her on the screen. So he comes up from a rise over this side of the stage. She'd perform. The camera would pan to Sean. He's supposed to do his part and pan back to her. They didn't want the two of them walking in frame together. And the lady at Atlantic who was doing the international stuff, she had to scream and shout and get wicked with MTV and be like, what the hell are you doing? What are you talking about? There's no way. It's a big #1 record. It is their shared record together. How can not? So there was always this thing on their side of not wanting to put Sean in the same frame with her in the music video, even on television, anywhere else, all over the place. All this rubbish about Sean and Beyonce had something. Oh, it is foolishness. Not like that. That is just
okay.
Loose minds want to think that. Nothing at all that way. But then Sean them got their revenge on her because remember they had sent us the files to record the record. So we had the files. We had her a cappella that we could use in our live stage show. I think Sean still does it. So they're the shows where they're on shows together. and she's a closing act, and Sean will be on earlier. But because her management have this attitude that him not performing with her and him don't want, you understand me? Sean would just come on 3 acts before and just sing the song himself, and our keyboard or drummer guy would just trigger the samples. Baby boy, you been on my man, and Sean just do the fucking record. And of course, sorry language, sorry.
Yeah.
And of course, afterwards, Matthew knows we'll be fuming because now you've taken out, it's a number 1 record. You come on 2 acts before Beyonce and sing out the record. Now how she going to sing the record and close the show? And he'd be livid. Totally livid. Wow. You guys can't do this. Fuck you, Jamaicans. La, 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 la. My artist song, right?
Jeremy.
But we're just like, yo, screw you, bro. This is how you put it. So this is what we have to do. So that's the story.
Wow, we're absolutely out of time, but this was amazing conversation. We definitely would have to plan for a part 2 because there's so much we didn't get into. But thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Kshema.
All right, that was Jeremy Hardy.